Friends, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world now. Thank you for tuning in. Today's session is jointly organized by Baitak UK and Sangeet Foundation. We have amongst us Padma Shri Aparna Sen. Aparna Sen is a leading Indian filmmaker. She is a humanist, writer, actor, director who made the iconic films 36, Chorungi Lane, Poruma, and Mr. and Mrs. Iyer. She has probed gender identity and explored mental health issues in 15 Park Avenue and Paramita Ragdin. A popular actor from the 70s in Bengali cinema, she was also a famed editor of Chanonda magazine and is a respected stage personality. We are delighted to welcome Aparna Sen, or Reenadi as she is known to a lot of us, as a patron of Sangeet Foundation. A brief background about Sangeet Foundation for those who are not aware. Sangeet Foundation believes in happiness through music and the arts. Happiness is a state of mind. Dig a little deeper, it is about mental health and wellness. Sangeet Foundation aims to create awareness about mental health in the South Asian diaspora and use music and the arts to create this awareness and also as possible alternative therapy. Please visit the website sangeetfoundation.org, Sangeet Foundation on Facebook page and group, Sangeet Foundation YouTube channel for more info. Our next event is tomorrow, 3rd May, Sunday at 4 p.m. UK time with Piru Vidyarthi, popular TV serial actress, fabulous singer and wellness activist. However, today, Aparna Sen is in conversation with Sangeeta Dotto of Baitak UK. Sangeeta Dotto is a writer, filmmaker, musician working between UK and India. She is the artistic director of Baitak UK, a cross-arts platform that brings the artist close up to the audience, trains young talent and creates new work. She curates the ongoing digital concerts Connect, hosted by Baitak UK. I strongly recommend that you visit and follow Baitak UK website, Facebook pages, Twitter and Instagram. She has written many books on Indian cinema and on Rabindranath Tagore, and her award-winning films include Life Goes On and Birds of Dust. In today's rendezvous with her, we will get up close and personal with Reenadi to get to know a bit more about her life, her thoughts, her works, and most importantly, about her association with mental health. This will be followed by poetry recitation and a question-answer session based on questions submitted by the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Aparna Sen in conversation with Sangeeta Dotto. Request Sangeeta Dotto to introduce Baitak UK as well.
Thank you, Joyanto. Joyanto, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So it's a great pleasure to be here this afternoon to do an event collaborated with Baitak UK and Sangeet Foundation. It's a great pleasure to welcome Aparna Sen to our session this afternoon. And it's also a great opportunity to tell the Sangeet Foundation members about Baitak UK. Many of you know about our organization. It is a cross-arts platform where we allow dialogue and debate and new work with young people here, and they get an idea of interacting or through workshops and masterclasses, knowing the work of experts and masters better. Very often we have resource people from India. Very distinguished guests have been with us over the last years, and we continue to encourage new talent and to give them a wider platform and thus strengthen the South Asian sector of the arts in the UK. We've been doing this for many years. It's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to welcome Aparna Sen many, many years ago when we've had interviews with her and events with her. And over the last few years, I have been asking Reenadi and saying it's really urgent and important that she visits the UK and meets her fans here. And for younger people to see her in person would always be so inspiring. So while that physical meet will still have to wait for many months and things around us are still uncertain, I think this is the best way to do an e-meet with our members at BETAC and the members at Sangeet Foundation to meet Aparna Sen. Welcome, Reenadi.
Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
It's delightful that we were offered this date, 2nd May, to do a conversation. And it just happens to be Shotajit Rai's 99th birth anniversary. So what a
That's
happy
right.
coincidence, and
Yes.
absolute marvelous to have you here to start this discussion on cinema, on the arts, on creativity and mental well-being. I'd really like to start at the beginning with your associations with Shotajit Rai. I know you've known him as a family friend for many, many years. Your father, Chidanandan Dashgupta, started the Film Society movement here, and he told me many stories about how there would be
Yes.
projections in your balcony and the art films would be shown. So, how was it, that whole experience of making your debut as a very young girl in Shamapti, which was one of the three, the trilogy of Teen Konda?
Yes, I was in class 8 then, and I was 14 years old. And of course, I'd known Shotojit Rai, whom I used to call Manik Kaka, for a long time because he was my father's friend. But that particular summer afternoon, I was reading Golpo Gucho because that had been an assignment given to me by my mother, who said, "This is something that you have to do." And I happened to be reading Shaumapti. I know nobody will believe this. And I was already acting in plays in school and had decided to be an actor. And as I was reading the story, I thought how wonderful it would be if somebody cast me in the role of Minmoy. And within a few minutes, the phone rang. And call it clairvoyance, call it what you will. I just knew that I knew who would be on the other side of the line. It was Shotyajit Rai. And with his booming voice, he used to call my father Chitu from Chidananda Dashgupta. That was his pet name. He said, "Chitu ache," which means, "Is Chitu there?" So I said, "Yes, who's speaking, please?" Though I knew full well. And he said, "Ami Shotyajit Rai kotha bolchi." And of course, I didn't have to say who I was, but I don't know why, what made me say, "আমি ওর বড় মেয়ে অপূর্ণা বলছি, আমি ডেকে দিচ্ছি বাবাকে," which means I'm his daughter Apurna. I just called my father. And I called my father, and Baba had a talk with Shutajit Rai. And later, he called me to the balcony where Ma was also sitting. And he said, Manik wants you in a film of his. He's making trio of films for Tagore's centenary. That was 1961. It wasn't yet 1961. I mean, the next year would be 1961. And he said that, he wants you in the film as Mrinmoy in Shamapti. And of course, I knew this was coming. But he said, but don't get too excited because you'll have to do a screen test first. We'll have to check you out. So I thought in the screen testing, I would be asked to read the poem or, given lines from the script to read or something like that. Nothing like that happened. I was put in a striped sari. They took my hair and made it a bun at the back, and they put a nose pin on my nose. And then they said, look up, look down, look sideways, look left, look right, turn. That's it. That was it. And I thought, well, obviously, he doesn't consider me worthy enough. But I think he was just checking out my angles. And the next thing I knew, I was acting in Shama Tesmin.
How did you manage your school commitments, for instance? Was the school easy with what you had to do, or did you have to miss classes?
Yes, I had to miss classes. They had agreed. Of course, permission was taken from the school. They had agreed, but I had to hear a lot. You went to modern high school too. So during mark reading, which was a terrible time, Mrs. Clark, because I had to miss a lot of my exams, the ones that I did, like English or history, I got good marks in. But the whole lot of uh, exams I couldn't do. And Mrs. Clark said, well, some of us are too busy becoming stars these days. or something like that. And I felt terrible. I felt awful. My God, it was awful. And, everyone laughed. But they allowed me to do it. And of course, for 4 years after that, I was not allowed to do anything by my parents. Nothing. Just finish your high school bus. That's it.
And then you came into mainstream cinema. Since we are going to talk more about um, characters with psychological depth, your own interest in mental health issues, did you at all feel that there was any scope to explore this in your career as a popular or a mainstream artist?
Only once, as far as I remember, only once. Because I had to play. I remember that I had to play in Kodi Diye Kinlam, but that was much later after I'd become a director.
Yeah.
I had to play the role of, I think, Loki, um, who went mad after her son killed the man she was living with. Uh, but I was just told to uh, go around collecting pebbles and stones from railway tracks and so on. So I said, wow, but why should she be doing that? So he said, but she's mad. I said, so what if she's mad? There must be some sort of logic. So then I suggested to them that, the son should kill the man that she was living with what we call a Nora, like a sort of grinding stone for spices. So here she is trying to put the grinding stone together because in her kind of warped way, she's thinking that if the grinding stone is back to its original form, then somehow this man is not going to be killed because we are going back in time. So that part I introduced myself. I had to because it didn't make any sense otherwise.
When did you start developing an interest in writing and direction? How long ago did you write 36 Chaurangi Lane?
Well, I started writing 36 Chaurangi Lane, I think, in 1976. But we made the film much later. I let it, I was drifting. I was writing a little, then not writing for months, and then again writing. And it was during the shooting of Hullabaloo over Georgie and Bonnie's pictures made by James Ivory and Ismail Merchant, that I decided, no, this won't do. If I want to make the film, then I will just have to sit down and write it. So I wrote it. I had written quite a bit. We'd done a lot of research and I'd written quite a bit. There were many, many drafts. And I finished it. But, it started as a short story because I was actually in Bombay working in a Bombay film. And, I was just waiting in the makeup room. And for somebody, either one of the stars or for the lighting to be ready, now I forget. And I thought, my God, am I going to be doing this for the rest of my life? And inside my head, there was a resounding no. So I said, what shall I do? Well, I used to write quite well in school. I was good at compositions and essays and so on. So let me start writing a short story. And to my credit, even though I was very much Upal Datto's sort of chela, so to speak, his disciple, I didn't try to write about farmers and the urban poor or about mill workers and so on because I didn't know enough about them. I had the good sense to write about something I know. So I said, what do I know? And then I thought of these school teachers, that who used to teach us, the Anglo-Indian school teachers. And Anglo-Indians were not then well treated. This was, what, 30 years after independence, 30 or a little more. But now the Anglo-Indians who had actually been quite, close to the British at one time and thought of England as home, uh, were now kind of in the doghouse, so to speak.
Yeah.
Nobody cared for them. So I felt terrible, and we had an Anglo-Indian teacher whose name was also Stoneham, but it was not Violet Stoneham. but it was some Stoneham, and she was a very bad teacher, very bad teacher of English, of Shakespeare or English literature. But somehow that is what interested me. The fact that they were not all good teachers, but they're very nice, kindly, gentle people. And how this Stoneham, I went to visit her also. This other Stoneham. She lived in a house alone, all by herself in Karnani Mansions, and she'd broken her elbow, and there was no one because all the youngsters, the next generation, had all migrated either to Canada or to Australia or New Zealand or wherever. So all of that I worked into my film.
And then with your later films also, you've had this constant probing of identity, of, of a sense of being, whether it is Poruma and her social roles that she plays, and the way she
Yes,
becomes non-normative when she wants to be an individual, that she addresses her
yes,
desires, and
that's
later in
right.
many other films. So what is
Yes.
this interest that you have in the marginalized, or somebody who is at the margin or standing on a border, either of transgression or of losing love or losing identity in say in Mr. and Mrs. Iyer?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's always been there with me. There's been an interest in old people, and old people also, in a sense, are marginalized. Here in 36 Chorangi Lane, she is particularly marginalized because she belongs to the Anglo-Indian community, also because she's old, because very few people have time for old people. And I feel terrible because I feel that all they have to look forward to is death most of the time. And they are lonely and people don't visit them. And that's something that really, really used to bother me. But also with in Poroma or in my other films, it's always been I want to get to the absolute interior space of the character. I mean, strip away all the layers and get there. That's what I wanted to do. I think that's the reason why, because it actually, the germ of Poroma came from a friend of mine who was very good at school. She was very good in everything, elocution, sports. I mean, she used to be the monitor of the class. She became the head girl later. She was wonderful. I mean, she was, even in college, she stood, the first class first, etc., etc. But then when I went to her son's Onnoprashan, which is the rice ceremony, then I found her playing out all her social roles of sister-in-law, daughter-in-law, or she being somebody's aunt-in-law, and so on. And I thought, where has my friend gone? I mean, is she there somewhere among these characters that she seems to be playing out, or has she become that? I mean, is there no going back to the girl that I knew? And that's how I think Poroma started.
I think a lot of viewers here would identify with what you're saying, and particularly the women who are watching this
Yeah,
business of having to incorporate social roles, and then you start searching for
yeah.
the real me. Um,
Hmm.
do you feel that today, just bringing it to today, where we are in lockdown mode, we've been stuck at home. Here, as I was telling you, we are still allowed to step out for an hour and go for a walk, which has kept our sanity. In India, you're just totally housebound. So during
Terrace
this lockdown
honafi.
mode, what exactly is going on in your head? What's the way you feel about isolation? This is also a sort of enforced isolation.
Yes, actually, I've been kept pretty busy by the world, strangely enough, uh, because I'm doing a whole lot of video interviews like today, and doing a whole lot of video recordings. And also, I've been translating a lot. I've come back to poetry after a long, long time. So I've been translating Bengali poetry into English a lot with the intention of acquainting those who are not Bengalis with our Bengali poets who really deserve to be known all over the world. Some of them are so good.
Yeah.
That's one. And the isolation, uh, I wish I had more time to actually delve into myself, which I'm really not getting. It's strange. I should be getting it. But everybody wants a piece of me somehow. Um, so I keep getting these calls at a drop of a hat. I mean, I have to keep my phone on do not disturb. It gets to that stage. So I've not really been isolated as I would have liked to be. I would have liked to be.
Yes, I know you like to go away when you write, and you have your little haven in Shantiniketan where you go away and write, or
Yes.
various other
But
places,
we
but
can't
now
go
you
there
can't.
either. No, no.
But for the audience here, for the viewers, Aparnadi has opened up her own room, this room with the green walls, which is now called the poetry room. And every morning there is a poem recited or read.
Yes.
And then she has fabulous translations, which she's doing herself. So really, thank you for that experience. It's really a
Thank you.
big boost for everybody. It's become the sort of morning elixir for most people. They wait for those few
Isn't that
moments of
wonderful? I
poetry.
mean, that gives me a lot of inspiration. You know, the comments and
Yeah.
the fact that people are regularly listening. That's wonderful. And also, it's really a mission. You know, Shungita. It's quite a mission that I feel that you know, just because people can't read Bengali or understand Bengali, they won't know our poets.
Mm. Mm.
So it's a sort of a mission.
Yeah. So, coming to your later films, and again addressing the fact that we are talking to Sangeet Foundation, and here we have a lot of people who are interested in the state of mental well being and the relationship that music has or the arts has with mental well being. You have done films like 15 Park Avenue, you've done
That's
films
right.
like Paramita Ragdeen, where we have had characters who are again, not normative in a normative manner,
Mm,
whom you would call normal. And you've had to
mm.
look into these characters, delve into them, not always find solutions, but actually offer another reality, which could be the other person's. So the fact that we
Particularly,
are looking at different perspectives and saying life is not all one dimensional, what would
quite
you
right.
say about that?
Well, I just feel that, I would like to delve into the nature of reality because I feel that reality is different for each one of us. Maybe amongst us who are quote unquote normal, it varies very little. The way you see a film, or the way you see a building, or the way you see a tree differs very, very slightly from mine. Or an incident that has taken place leaves a certain impression on your mind, which is slightly different from mine. But it is not widely divergent. In the case of schizophrenia, which I have had occasion to be closely in contact with because of a relative, very close relative, I know that the nature of the reality of the schizophrenic person is widely different from ours, mainly because she or he, I think it's too painful for them. The reality that we live in is too painful for them. There is a loss of self-esteem. There's a huge loss of self-esteem, and they gradually, it should be actually it should be treated very early. The earlier the better, because once it becomes chronic, it's almost impossible to do anything about it.
Mhm.
This I have seen. I mean, this I'm talking from my own experience, and this happened once. I mean, this person, she was in the she was in the balcony of my parents' house, and she said that the nanny was actually beating my other sister's children. Now, the nanny, of course, denied it, and then she said, "But I saw her." And everyone, nobody believed her. Everyone believed the nanny. And then I thought, but to her, even if she imagined it, even if it was a delusion, it was as real as like talking to you today on Zoom is. And that's when I started thinking about the tyranny of the majority over those whose realities are different. Which is why I think in 15 Park Avenue, right at the end, I made a kind of surreal transcendental leap, and I made her go in, step into her own reality, and have the others follow her reality, because she had been uh, in a lot of torment because she was constantly having to live out a reality which was not hers. And this film, in fact, has been shown in many, many psychiatric institutions, and I've been told by psychiatrists that it's a very real depiction of schizophrenia.
You work a lot with young people in your units these days, of the current films that you're making with young actors, with young technicians. And do you feel that this issue of mental health is something that people are willing to talk about more or deal with more?
You know, they would, but they are actually terribly pressured themselves. I mean, it's a wonder that they don't go off. They don't, somehow become mentally deranged because they are under so much pressure. There's so little money now, and they have to work at such a pace, uh, technicians and actors, that I don't really think that they have the time. it's
To
it's
deal
it's
with
bad
this.
enough for them to, yes, for them to
Hmm.
remain sane.
Hmm. So this brings me to a larger question of, dealing with realism in art or dealing with a sort of a bubble where you create these romantic stories or rom-coms and there's song and dance and everyone goes home feeling happy. What is your engagement with? I know you're dealing with a very serious subject now for your forthcoming project.
Yes. Well, I think they can all coexist, because I think it's important to have that too, because people relax seeing those films. For instance, who doesn't relax seeing, let's say, Roman Holiday?
Mm.
It's not a rom-com, but if one were to watch a romantic film, then one can relax. It's true. Sometimes when I'm exhausted, I don't feel like watching a very serious film. So they can coexist. Also, it's always been that way, Shobita, in every country. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Bergman's, but Bergman was not ever popular even in his own country. He was looked up to, but he was not popular, if you know what I mean. He was hugely venerated. um, but you have to have mainstream cinema, and you have to have the other kind of cinema. I'll tell you why I'm saying this. Because mainstream cinema is what brings in the revenue, and the other kind of cinema is what takes cinema forward. New languages of cinema are formed. And that's very, very important. We don't any longer, need earlier on, if you said, well, I'm planning to go to Delhi, you had to have a train shot in between. You no longer have to. The language of cinema has changed
Hmm.
thanks
Hmm.
to exposure. Uh, but the language of cinema is being created all the time by innovative filmmakers. And another thing that I want to say is that today, I'm not talking about rom coms, but today, the dividing line between what used to be called art cinema and mainstream cinema has really blurred. Because nowadays, even in mainstream cinema, you have a lot of very, very interesting stories, realistic stories, because we haven't, of course, moved away from the narrative form. That I don't think will ever go, because people's interest in stories is, from primitive times. Uh, but experimental cinema we don't really have. But the language of cinema is changing
Yeah.
along with the times, and they're changing thanks to these innovative filmmakers.
You're also having to deal with technology on sort of everyday hands-on technology much more
That's right.
now
Yeah,
at the times
yeah,
of
yeah,
lockdown.
yeah.
And are you finding this liberating? Because as you said, it's also keeping you unusually busy.
I'm just learning to deal with it now. It's sometimes irritating me, uh, because I'm not used to it. Uh, am I going through future shock? Not really. I'm. I've always been someone who takes life as it comes, and I'm not one to dwell in the past. Oh, it was so good then. It's all so awful now. I don't like that kind of attitude at all. So if um, the digital or the digital platform is going to be the new order of the day, then I'll just have to catch up.
That brings me to the experience of viewing, Rinadi, and for all of us who've grown up on uh, big screen, on the big screen, on the magic of the big screen, of that
Oh,
whole
don't even talk
exuberance of
about
being
it.
in a cinema hall. And now
Don't
there's
even
talk
talk
of,
about it.
yes, the
Oh,
whole
don't
whole
even.
experience of going there, and then it becomes conversation later on. The songs are there to pick
Now,
up. What's going to
also,
happen to that
yeah,
whole experience?
I know that's probably going to go. I mean, unless we can really find a cure for corona, for the COVID-19 virus, that's just going to be a thing of the past. Just like, I remembered I typed out 36 Chorungilin on a Brother typewriter. Then later on, I used to think of these people who used to produce these typewriters. Oh, where are they? We don't have them anymore. You got used to the computer. Uh, Similarly, I suppose we will get used to the digital platform. But oh, we don't shoot on film anymore. We all shoot, with digital cameras. That, to me, is not something that I heartily welcome, though
Mhm.
it's convenient. But because I remember handling film, just taking the strips of film like that in your hand during editing, and the smell of that film, all of that is part of the nostalgia that kind of engulfs me every time I think about it. And the experience of watching with other people in a silent theater where you hear, you laugh together, some people cry together, uh, you get angry together. It's a community experience, so to speak. That's I think that's very important. There's a kind of magical quality about it, where you can forget everything. But if you're sitting at home and watching, someone comes and says something, you put it on pause, then you go and get yourself a cup of tea or whatever. You know, that's no way to. I don't want my films to be watched that way.
Yeah. And music has also played a very important part in many of your films. And I particularly remember Paramita Rakdin, where there is the song that the girl sings. And for
Three
that
songs, yeah.
moment, she seems to be happy and in another world. What does music mean to
Yeah,
you?
music. Well, of course, music means a great deal. And I think this a relative that I'm talking about. She used to be a wonderful singer. Her voice is now deteriorated completely. She can't sing anymore. But there were times when she would suddenly sing, and she seemed completely normal. And that is something that I remember. In fact, when I was acting in Mrinal Sen's film Mahaprithibi, there was Anushwa Mojumdar was playing my sister-in-law, who was supposed to be having schizophrenia, and she was fighting with me and with the others. She was becoming violent, and then I go to her room and she's absolutely normal, and I give her medicine. That's when I had suggested to Mrinal Sen, why don't you have her sing at this point? But I think it was too late in the day and he didn't have a song ready, or I think maybe he didn't like the idea. But that idea stayed in my mind, and I used it in Parumita Raktin, uh, Kuku, the schizophrenic girl, uh, actually sings three songs. There are three songs in the film that she
Yeah.
sings. And I thought that Rabindra Songit particularly uh, can speak volumes. It really can, because I think Rabindranath is one person who, through his songs, I'm leaving aside his poetry and his short stories and his novels and so on, just through his songs. He said, whatever else dies, my songs will live on. Tagore had said
Yeah.
himself. And his songs have lived on. And they capture moods because of the synthesis of the words and the melody that is
Mm.
so absolutely apt and perfect that it captures moods in a brilliant way. I don't like having songs in my films usually, but in this particular case, since Kuku was a singer, I took the opportunity of having these three Rabindra Songits. And
Mhm.
I've noticed this other person that I was talking about. Whenever if she comes to our house and she comes and wants to talk, and I'm busy and there's nothing to talk about, I go on to YouTube and I put on songs. Or she sits in her room all day listening to music. And that seems to keep her occupied and in good spirits. I think music has a huge role to play.
I'm just hoping that along with people who are acquainted with your films, a lot of younger people are also watching today. And they will, through this discussion, feel interested and inspired to go and watch your films because they are
Oh,
inspiring. You know, there's another film which has just been in my head for so long. It's not one of my favorite films of yours, but Juganto, which deals with this myth of the world destroying and renewing itself, the idea of the turtle, which if it moves, the earth heaves. And then you have songs like Bipulo Torongo in other films. You end with those sort of songs which give you the sense of a larger universe in which man
yes.
is a small part. I feel
Actually,
that this is so important to get these layerings for younger people who don't get these in today's narratives, the sense of larger frameworks.
actually, Shongita, Juganto should have been my swan song because Juganto is the best script I've ever written. But it was not executed properly because at that time I was working with NFDC and I was not happy with the execution. But it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of my favorite films. But yes, the larger universe. You're right about that. There was this little village who had nothing to do with the Gulf War, but they are victims of it too. Now, of course, that's not realistic, but I like to use the surreal as a device also. I
Yeah.
think that one doesn't have to stick to everyday reality, mundane reality all the time. By not sticking to reality, I don't mean going off into a fantasy where you're singing songs around trees, but by uh, by moving away from everyday reality, sometimes you can create absolutely wonderful moments. I created that once in Juganto when Rupa, who plays Anushwa, the heroine, she is in the water, and then Deepak, played by Anjun Dotto, is asking her to come out because he's scared that she'll drown. And then
Yeah.
she laughs, and then she holds up a fish's tail, and she said, "How I can't come up because I don't have legs. My legs were nibbled away, and see what I've got instead." And she holds up a fish tail. You know, these are the little kind of little surreal moments that can create magic in cinema. So I like to be able to do that also.
Yeah, so magic realism is part of a style, you know, across literature
Yeah.
and cinema and the arts,
Yes.
and
I
you've
have that
certainly
in.
moved in that direction. Yeah.
Yes, I've got that in Vanar Bakshu very much.
Yes. Yes. Very much so. Well, I wish you all the best with the new project, which will unfurl as the world normalizes. Maybe even this idea of COVID and the fear that has engulfed the world is something that will get into a script of yours somewhere.
Maybe it, you know what happens? It marinates inside you, and then suddenly one day you have a story idea. But I just wanted to say for 1 second that in my last film, Ghore Baire Aaj, I was particularly careful with the music because what we did, we had a song. We had two songs actually, one by Ustad Rashid Khan, and one actually a Vidyapati song,
Mm.
lyrics by Vidyapati, and the tune was by Rabindranath. So we had two songs, but I'm not talking about the songs. I'm talking about the theme. There was a theme music, and we kept changing the instrumentation for the different characters. You know, and I think that kind of thing is very interesting because I don't
Yeah.
like to carpet a film with music. I don't
No,
like to
you
do that
actually
because
followed the structure of the novel where this same story is told by different characters. So I found
yes,
that very
yes,
interesting. So
yes,
it's you know, either the woman's story being told or the husband's or the Swaraj leaders who is also the lovers, and the music also shifts accordingly. So
yeah,
yes, there's
yeah,
something very orchestrated about that.
yes,
I
yes.
can't hear Jointo at all. Neither can I see him. So I'm not sure if we've gone beyond time. Joyanta, would you like to come in at this point?
Absolutely. Thank you so
There
much
are
for that.
questions here.
Yeah. So fabulous. It was fabulous to hear all those experiences, and I can see on the screen that so many people are delighted to have Reena, Dia, and you in conversation, and this is really nice. So this is for all the people who have joined in late. We have with us Padma Shri Aparna Sen. She needs no introduction actually, and we are delighted to welcome Aparna Sen, or Rinadi as she's known to a lot of us, as a patron of Sangeet Foundation. This has been brought to you by Biotech UK and Sangeet Foundation. And what we'll do is we'll go into the next phase, which is where we'll have Rinadi. Well, she's going to read out a poem first in Bengali and then the English translation, followed by we'll have a few questions. We might go a bit over time, but if we would request you to be there, there'll be some very interesting questions from the audience, which you'll place to her, and I'm sure we can hear what she has to say about that. So I'll hand the stage over to Rinadi. Rinadi, if you will, please, with your poem. We'd like to hear that.
Yeah, today's Shotyajit Ray's birthday. As Sangeeta said a little while ago, he would have been 99 years old today. He would have completed his 99th year and stepped into his 100th year. So I thought that it would be very fitting to read out a translation of Satyajit Ray of one of his father's poems. His father was Sukumar Rai, who's extremely well known and acclaimed as a nonsense writer of both prose and poetry. And Satyajit Ray, people know as a filmmaker. They know him as a writer of children's stories and so on, Feluda series, etc., Shonku. But very few people know what a good translator he was. And he keeps the rhythm. So I'm going to read out, and I think it's particularly, it would be nice at this time when we're all feeling blue to read this to you. The original poem I'll read first. It's called Ram Gorure Chana. রামগরুরে ছানা হাসতে তাদের মানা হাসির কথা শুনলে বলে হাসবো নানা নানা সদাই মরে ত্রাসে ওই বুঝি কেউ হাসে এক চোখে তাই মিটিয়ে তাকায় আশেপাশে ঘুম নাহি তার চোখে আপনি বকে বকে আপনারে কয় হাসিস যদি মারবো কিন্তু তোকে যায় না বনের কাছে কিংবা গাছে গাছে দক্ষিণ হাওয়ার সুরসুরিতে হাসিয়ে ফেলে পাছে স্বস্তি নেই মনে মেঘের কোণে কোণে হাসির বাষ্প উঠছে ফেঁপে কান পেতে তাই শোনে ঝোপের ধারে ধারে রাতের অন্ধকারে জোনাক চলে আলোর তালে হাসির ঠালে ঠারে হাসতে হাসতে যারা হচ্ছে কেবল সারা রাম গরুরের লাগছে ব্যথা বুঝছে নাকি তারা রাম গরুরের বাসা ধমক দিয়ে ঠাসা হাসির হাওয়া বন্ধ সেথায় নিষেধ সেথায় হাসা. That was the original Bengali. Those of you who know Bengali have understood it. But for those of you who don't speak or understand Bengali, here's the translation by Satyajit Ray. He calls it the sons of Ramgaru. To the sons of Ramgaru, laughter is taboo. A funny tale will make them wail. We're not amused, boo-hoo. They live in constant fear of chuckles far and near, and start and bound at every sound that brings a breath of cheer. Their peace of mind forfeiting, they sit and keep repeating, we believe in only grieving, happiness is fleeting. They shun the summer breeze that whispers through the trees, for fear the stir of leaf and burr their funny bones should tease. They keep a weary eye on the autumn sky for signs of mirth above the earth in foaming cumuli. The darkness of the night brings them no respite as fireflies extemporize their dances of delight. Those of you who are jolly and feel to woe is folly must not refuse the Rangaroos their right to melancholy. Remember, it's democracy, Article 19 of the Constitution. Those of you who are jolly and feel to woe is folly must not refuse the Ramgarus their right to melancholy. The Ramgarusian lair, bereft of sun and air is doomed to be a monastery of permanent despair. So that was Shruti Rai's translation.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so
You're
much for that,
welcome.
Aparna. Uh, Beautiful translation and beautiful recitation over there.
Thank
What we'll do is we'll quickly go through the questions which have been posed by the audience, which I
you.
have collated, and I will ask you on their behalf. So there's
Okay.
one question from Dr. Indrani Lahiri. How can film be used to alternative the narrative of negativity and stigma linked to mental health?
It's going slowly, I think it's slowly receding. Nothing happens overnight. It's very important that we constantly talk about it. We constantly um, bring to light that this stigma is harmful, that it could happen to anyone. And nowadays, I find that more and more homes, there are people who are suffering from mental health. Because I know that after I came out of a screening of Parumita Ragdin, there were people who came to me and said, Didi, nobody thinks about these people. We have children like that in our homes. You at least talked about them. So it's I think it's important to keep talking about it, you know, and try and change people's mind, bring awareness.
Thank you. The next question is from Shonali Mukherjee. Your films are more thought provoking and they deal with interpersonal relations, societal challenges, amongst other things. Currently, the whole is undergoing an upheaval. Are you contemplating any green shoot which may capture the current catastrophe in a future film?
Who knows? Because what happens is when something uh, leaves an impression, the stories or the narrative about it or a film doesn't come overnight. Very rarely, at least not to me. It kind of marinates inside you, and then a story will form. The kernel of a story will form, which then images will start coming, and then I feel this absolute compulsion to flesh it out and make it into a film. That's how it happens with me. I can't tell at this stage.
Sure. The second question from her is instant gratification and instantaneous rebuttal are now parts of our daily lives. How is this instinct impacting you as an observer of the contemporary?
Well, it's affecting my cinema because I don't contribute to this instant coffee culture at all. I think that it's important to so supposing you see a film and you don't understand it immediately, or you read a book and you don't understand it immediately, drop
Mhm.
it? No, I wouldn't drop it. I would try to delve deeper inside, particularly if it has been acclaimed by people. Uh, Even in situations, supposing someone kind of behaves badly, I wouldn't like to become immediately judgmental. I would like to find out if that person, has a reason to be behaving the way she is or he is.
Okay. Thank you. The next question is from Indrani Bhattacharya, a bit of a personal kind of a question, which says, Aparna Sen, the artist, and Aparna Sen, the person on a Sunday morning, all by herself, alone. Do they ever meet or do they get along better as separate entities?
First of all, we don't have Sunday mornings in our world. We don't have Sunday mornings except the second Sunday, which is a mandatory holiday. We don't have Sunday mornings. But I think, on a more serious note, one feeds the other. I have to all see film direction cannot be taught. You can learn editing, you can learn photography, you can learn all kinds of other things, but film direction is what is your vision of life. And your vision of life comes from your experiences, your exposure, the books you read, the Sunday mornings maybe that you spend contemplating, whatever it is. Ideas, you have to leave your mind free for ideas to flow. So actually, one feeds the other.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. The next question is from Satpreet Kaur.
Yeah.
And this is something which people have been contemplating on. In the past 2 days, Indian cinema has lost two great actors, Irfan Khan and Rishi Kapoor. We know you
Yeah.
wanted to cast Irfan in one of your projects, but it didn't materialize. What memories do you have of him and of Rishi Kapoor?
See, I didn't know them very well personally. Irfan, of course, I'd met, and he had seen my film, The Japanese Wife, and loved it. He said my Bengali wife cried so much, he sent a message that it was difficult to console her. But I went to meet him. He did meet me, and he once told me that if he gave me a consent letter for the film in which I wanted him to play Krishna, Lord Krishna. But
Mhm.
he said once that if you ever do a film on Karna of Mahabharat, I would like
Mhm.
to play. This I remember. Uh, Rishi, I didn't know very well, and we met once in a while and said hi, hello, and how are you, etc. We were on good terms. But it's very sad to see Rishi pass away. Both of them battled with cancer, and Rishi was so good in a film called Mulk. I still remember.
Mhm.
Um, and as far as Irfan is concerned, I think that he was a gift. He really was a gift to us, the audience. He was one of the best actors the world has ever produced.
Fabulous. Thank you. And it has been a sad couple of days over the past week
Yes,
where we
and then
lost.
Chuni Goswami passed away, and before
True.
that, Usha Ganguly. So April
Exactly.
has been a cruel month.
Cruel month for all of us. The next question is from Anamika Roy. She
Mhm.
says, "Welcome to Sangeet Foundation and thank you for supporting us." Yes, that is my comment as well. What inspired you to write 15 Part Avenue, and what was the most challenging about directing the movie?
Well, as I said, that there is this person, this relative, a close relative, whom I have had occasion to observe very closely. And it was a kind of tribute to her, really. That is what inspired me. In fact, most of the dialogue that I've used is actually hers. At one point, because I was remember I was talking about the different kinds of reality,
Mhm.
the reality of the schizophrenic person, the reality of the others, with so-called normal people. And she says to her sister at one point, uh, "What if I told you that you are not really a professor and you're just imagining it?" And really silences the elder sister because it is true. I mean, she's constantly being told, "Oh, Miti, you're imagining this. This is not real." For her, it's absolutely real. This is what hurt me deep inside somehow. It just hurt me. And I thought that supposing I was in her shoes, supposing today somebody told me, "No, no, you didn't have this Zoom chat. You're just imagining it." How would I
Yeah.
feel?
Hmm. True.
I think that was what prompted me.
Fabulous. The next question is from Anindita Banerjee.
Mhm.
Most memorable moment while working with Shotriyut Rai? Any anecdotes?
Yeah, of course. Well, one I remember because when I was in Shamapti, I was being told what to do all the time. I was very young, and he used to deal with actors, different actors in different ways. One of the, I mean, a whole lot of actors like Opu of Pothe Panchali was directed absolutely minutely. I was not directed minutely, but I was basically told what to do. And since I thought of myself as an actor, having acted in school and having got prizes for dramatic ability and so on, I felt very bad that I never got a chance to show off any acting skills. But there was this one scene where I was supposed to carry my squirrel in my hand, and it is supposed to escape through the bars of a window that I'm looking out of. I mean, I'm looking I'm outside looking into a room through the bars, and this squirrel was supposed to escape from my hand. Normally, it would wriggle out whenever you held it,
Hmm.
but that day it just stayed put in my hand. So I had to improvise because I didn't want the shot to be cut. And I pretended that I was fascinated with it and I laid it gently down on the windowsill of the room, the inside sill. And then suddenly, as if I suddenly realized that, oh, it's escaped, I run after it. Now, I remember Bongshi Chandragupta, the art director, shaking his head and saying, hold on na, meaning meaning it didn't work. But Manik Kaka, I mean Satyajit Ray, whom I call Manik Kaka, he was laughing. He was laughing a lot, and he said, I rather liked it." And that scene is in the film. So that was very, very important to me. Uh,
Next question. What do you like to do when you have some spare time? You said you don't have spare time right now, but if you do have something that you
often, often there are three games that I play on my phone. One is chess, one is Scrabble, and one is bridge. These three games I
travel.
play on my. This is what I do.
Okay. So next question. When are we going to be treated to another Aparna Sen directed movie?
Well, let's see if we can make movies at all after this. Because what I'm scared of is that there are so many people needed in a unit, and actors have to come into close proximity with each other, one another. They have to sometimes hug and kiss. I don't, and there are about 80 to 100 heads in a unit. Now, how are we going to do this? I mean, even if it's phased out, how are we going to get these films made? We'd have to figure out a way. So I don't really know what my next. I have my next film all ready. The script is ready, but I don't know when we're going to shoot it or how we're going to shoot it.
Great. Okay. So I'm sure we'll get to see something happening after the COVID situation improves.
I hope so. I hope so.
So next question is from Shagurika Thakur. Which heroine
Okay.
of Satyajit Ray do you connect with the most? What was so different working with him that he stands apart?
Well, the actress that I connect with the most is Madhubi Mukherjee, Madhubi Chakraborty now. I think she was brilliant in Mohanagar, which is one of my favorite Satyajit Ray films. She was absolutely brilliant in Charulata. So it's a pity that she stopped working with him. I could connect a lot with her. I could connect a lot. And also with Koruna Bandyopadhyay, Sharbujaya. She played Sharbujaya in the Opu trilogy. Of course, she dies in the second film of the trilogy, but I could connect with deeply.
Fabulous. Next question is, what is your feminist viewpoint? Well, this I suppose refers to what is your view regarding. There's a post by one of the current actresses, Poroma, about body shaming, which is trending right now on the social media.
I don't know what this body shaming is. If it's what, in fact, Jonathan, you told me that
Yes,
she had criticized some person because this fat person was dancing and it was not according to her aesthetic. But
right.
I don't think that I don't like being judgmental. If a fat person wants to dance, well, let her dance. I mean, what's wrong? If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But you know, there are people who come and say, "Oh, you've lost so much weight, or you've put on so much weight," as if weight matters. Of course, weight matters for health reasons, but they're not talking about health reasons. There is a kind of normative. There's a normative thing about this that you have to have a good figure, etc., etc. Uh, this is totally a personal choice. I don't believe in this at all.
Great. Um, so, which comes to the personal part of it. So, Nupur Rai, my wife actually, she's fascinated with you. So, she said, at your age, how do you manage to keep fit and looking better than a lot of much younger people?
No, well, I don't know. This is in the middle of the lockdown, so one is not even being able to go to beauty parlors or anything like that. But I think, if at all you think so, I mean, I thank you very much. Thank your wife very much. But if at all, I think it must be good genes that I've inherited from my parents. And also the lifetime of yoga and the beauty routine that my mother made us follow since we were children. It became like brushing one's teeth, uh, uh, using a cleanser to clean your face, whether you have makeup or not, then washing your face using a moisturizer. This is a daily routine. It's gone on for years. So I suppose it has had some effect.
So, last two questions, and this is from me actually. you have been at the edge of creativity in art, poetry, literature, movies throughout your life. How, in your opinion, does it contribute to address mental wellness?
How do films contribute?
Films and the art of filmmaking, acting, and so on, everything, that the whole process, how does it contribute or in the mental wellness piece?
For the person who's involved, the
Yes.
performer?
Performer?
Well, I think it's not just acting or directing. If anybody is doing something, if you're lucky enough for your vocation to also be your profession, then I think it leads to wellness. But if you're having to do a job that you hate every day of your life, like when I was acting in mainstream films, I really felt miserable a lot of the time. Uh, so I think it has a whole lot to do with how much you enjoy your work, no matter what that work is.
Fabulous. So, last couple of questions. One is, well, this is something I took away from a lot of people. So it says, if I were to attempt to get into movies, what would your advice be?
Get into movies in what way? As an actor, if you want to
Uh,
get in as an actor, then you should really prepare. First of all, I think you should do theater. Try and do theater, learn, because actors need to learn. I mean, you just can't be an actor. So I think it's important for you to actually learn the art, and also it's very important for you to prepare a kind of show reel, and and have a sort of you know a lot of pictures which show you with makeup, without makeup, which shows a
mhm.
profile, a frontal face, etc., etc., so that a director can then see if it matches with his or her vision of a certain character, and then call you for an audition. If you want to be a director, then you'd first better get hold of a good script.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And the last question, my daughters are
What?
quite puzzled. They are asking me, they are asking me, what prompted you to agree to be a patron of Sangeet Foundation? What? So they are saying, Sangeet Foundation is another charity. You have started it. It's your passion. But why would a person like, an icon like Aparna Sen be associated with you?
Well, one of the reasons is that I am deeply interested in mental illness, and also in not only in mental illness, also in challenged people. I used to go regularly to the Institute of Cerebral Palsy at one time and meet the children there and talk to them and so on. I think it's my concern with the marginalized which has prompted me.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Aparna Sen. Padma Shri Aparna Sen. Can we have Shongita Di as well on the screen, please?
My phone is completely out of charge, by the way, John.
Okay. So I think, thank you so much for that. I think he's probably having technical problems again, like we had, and thank you and I know all of us are struggling with this. This is a new technology, new platform. And thank you so much for being a part of the Sangeet Foundation journey, for joining us here. And I'm absolutely delighted, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely delighted to present you Aparna Sen along with Shongita Dotto. I think it has been fabulous. Thank you both so much. So this is Batak and Sangeet Foundation thanking both Shongita Dotto and Aparna Sen here. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Rinadi.